I don't do unboxing videos. There's no point. Everything that I look at is a service. It's a web service, so there's nothing to unpack. This video is a bit different, and I'm going all out YouTube. Like and subscribe, all of that stuff. Guess what? We're doing an unboxing video. reInvent 2020 was different. It was different for a couple of reasons. One very obvious reason was that, of course, none of us were there. It was a virtual online event. But another reason it was different is that they started to ship, or they announced the shipping of physical products. We've had physical products before. So we've had things like Deep Lens, Deep Racer, Deep Composer. These were things that were sort of educational products. They were designed to get us interested in Amazon Web Services, in machine learning particularly, and see how those services worked. They were toys. And I was looking for a toy this year, and I suppose in a way we got the EduKit, that IoT device that we've looked at before. That happened. But one thing that was different at reInvent in 2020 is that we got physical products which were actually targeted at the enterprise. Again, it was at machine learning. So we got Monitron, which were devices that you can, or are devices you can stick to machinery. They'll look for vibrations and temperature and try and help you do predictive maintenance on your plant. In addition to that, though, we also had Panorama. And somewhere inside of this box, I should find one of those. It's in here. It's more difficult than it looks. Okay. This is the AWS Panorama Developers Kit. So this is designed to help you create projects which you can use with Panorama. Now, what is Panorama? Panorama is a machine learning device for doing computer vision machine learning projects. So this is essentially the all grown-up version of the Deep Lens. This allowed you to load projects and machine learning projects on here to do computer vision problems and has a camera on it. This is essentially the enterprise version of that. So inside of here, let's take a look. Stuff, I'm genuinely not interested in the box or the documentation. I want to take a look at the actual device itself. And here it is. So we've seen images of this before, I guess, from the keynote presentation where it got announced, which incidentally, as soon as it was announced, I jumped on LinkedIn and I said, how can I get my hands on one of those? The answer was, we'll see what we can do. And this is it. So it's not available quite yet for purchase. But yeah, I'm very grateful for AWS sending me this particular unit through so that we could take a look at it. And here it is. It's quite a sturdy and quite a heavy box. The actual shipping was something like £3. I'll put the exact weight down here so you can take a look. So it's actually quite sturdy. It feels like it's made from really quite a sturdy plastic. On the back here, we've got stuff you can look at. I'm hoping that all gets in focus and stuff. So you've got a couple of Ethernet ports, and you'll notice that they've got screw threads on them so that you can actually put secured RJ45 connectors in there. So you can actually mount this, I guess, outside. Now, I'm not sure that I'd actually ever want to mount it outside. It's got an IP rating, which again, I'll put down here because I can't remember what it is, which means that it can survive with some rain and some dust and in sort of hostile environments that you wouldn't normally put a computer inside of. However, you can't plug cameras directly into it as such. They have to be IP cameras, which are sending their real-time streams over a network that this is connected to. So I think that this might get installed on a factory floor or something, on a network which is close to those cameras, for example. Because what can you use this for? Well, it's designed for computer vision problems, as I've said. It's designed for things like manufacturing quality control on manufacturing line. I, of course, want to use this for Lego brick detection, and so that's absolutely what I'm going to do. So there's the device itself, cables and stuff, as you'd imagine, and it's also got a something here. Oh, it's got a USB memory stick for, looks like it's for provisioning for the unit. We'll look at that more later. So this is the developer's kit. It does have this message on top of the developer's kit, which I think is basically just saying that this is a developer's kit. You get root access to the device, and so you're not intended to use this in production. How else this differs from the actual production device, as in the one you'd use for a production deployment, I'm not sure yet. We'll figure that out as we go. On the front here, if I just open up this little flap, so there's a little spring-loaded, weather-sealed flap, because again, this can go outside. And in here, we've got a couple of USB type A sockets, which look like they're probably USB version. Actually, I don't know. Oh, one of them is USB 3.0. One of them is USB 2.0, but they're both USB type A sockets. We also have HDMI, and we also have an SD card reader there, or an SD card slot as well, and a power button and a reset button in there. That's underneath this spring-loaded door. So that's how that works. You kind of like snap it into place like that, and presumably that gives it some level of protection from the elements. That's it. That's it. Power, network, those things on the front. Time to get this turned on and see what we can make it do. Okay, let me explain a little bit about the setup, what we've got here. I've got the Panorama device, I've got HDMI plugged into it, into a monitor. I've got a network cable plugged into it. It's plugged into port 0 out of the 2 ports, 0 and 1. I've got power standing by to plug into it. I've not done that yet. I'm not quite ready to do that yet. In addition to that, of course, I have my laptop here, which is logged into the AWS console, so I'm ready to go there. And I also have multiple RTSP streams on the network, so streams from cameras and from things pretending to be cameras. I'll talk more about that in a minute, that the device will be able to see. So the task here is to get it connected up to the network, get it connected up to my AWS account, connect some camera streams to it, and deploy a model so it can actually start to make some inference on those streams. We'll see how quickly we can do this. Okay, so the first thing to do is jump into the AWS console and go to Panorama. So let's type in Pano and go to the Panorama page in the console. And the first thing it's going to say is, hey, I need to create some IAM roles, and I need to do that in order that I can control and configure the Panorama device through AWS services. So we can go ahead and click create. Just before I do that, I'm going to say view roles. I want to have a little look at them. It doesn't show us the actual policies of the roles that it's going to create, but it does show us in English language essentially what it's going to do. And it's important when services do this on our behalf. We're still responsible for these roles in the shared responsibility model. So if we're rolling this out into production, I'd care more about the details of this, but for now, I'm just going to go ahead and say create. So now with those roles created, I can go ahead and add an appliance. So this being the appliance, the Panorama device. So let's go add appliance. And it takes us through this multi-step setup process. So this first page is just a hello. So let's go and say begin setup. And it says, what do we want to call this? So I'm going to call this my Panorama. That's what I'm going to call it, my Panorama. No description, no tags. At this point, this isn't a production rollout, so let's go ahead and click next. So next, it's talking about the network configuration. It's got Ethernet configuration and or Wi-Fi configuration. If you do try to connect it up with Wi-Fi, you're going to have it connected via Ethernet first to actually get that thing set up in the first place. I'm going to stick with Ethernet. I don't want to sort of mess around with Wi-Fi. If we look at the advanced network options in here, what we see is we can actually have different setups for both Ethernet port 0 and Ethernet port 1. What I assume this is for is so that we can have one port to manage the device and the other port to maybe connect up to a network which has got the cameras on it, so that you have your cameras and all that streaming data sort of separate from the other network, the network with the internet connection, for example. So I don't have that. I'm just going to stick to the single port setup. So let's just click save on that, go back, and I'm just going to go straight through with this sort of default Ethernet connectivity setup. The next thing it wants to do is talk about SSH. Now this is a developer device, so I get to set up SSH to be able to get into this device, to be able to debug, to be able to see what's going on. to be able to shut it down, to be able to reboot it. These are really useful things. We didn't get that option with things like Deep Racer, so there were some hacks that we had to do to be able to break into it, if you like, so that we could SSH and have that control. So I quite like this. Let's go ahead and say I'm going to activate SSH. I'll give it a username. I'm going to type in a password. Hopefully I'll be able to remember that password, and click next. And it says that what we're going to do now is download that profile that we've just created in the console and transfer it to the Panorama device by USB memory stick. Now, this USB memory stick actually came in the pack. So I actually have this stick. There's nothing on it. I've already looked. It's literally just for transporting some files. So it's USB type A. Let me plug it into my dongle here so we can get it, adapter, whatever, so we can plug it in. Okay, let's click download archive. It downloads it to my machine. And I just need to put this onto the USB memory stick. Before I do that, let's just double click on it and open it up. You don't need to do this, but let's just see what's inside. It's got a network.json file. So this is actually the network configurations. This does actually include the username and password that we just set up for SSH. It presumably would also include the SSID and the Wi-Fi password that we are configuring on this device. So therefore, once we've finished with this file in my downloads, once we've finished with this file on the USB memory stick, it's very important to delete it so it's not floating around for everybody to see. There's also a couple of certificates on there and another configuration, another certificate on there. So this is just provisioning information that's all been packaged up for us by the console. Let's just delete that because we don't need to know what's inside, but that's what it's doing. Now let's get this transferred over to the memory stick. Just copy it across like that and back into the console. Okay, so I now have all of that configuration information on this USB thumb drive. I'm going to click next. It's saying now, put this USB thumb drive inside of the Panorama device and apply power. So let's go ahead and do that. Now I've got in here keyboard and mouse as well, so it's a wireless keyboard and mouse. I don't actually think we'll ever need that, but it's just connected just in case. So it means that I've plugged in the USB thumb drive into the USB 3.0 socket. I don't think it matters, but that's what I've done. Okay, let's go ahead and apply power. And as soon as I apply power, the lights on the front come on, so it's sort of auto turn on. We've got a red light currently for the network, and we've got a green light flashing for power. So as it goes up through the boot cycles, we shall see that change. So now we've got green on the network, so presumably it's managed to connect in to DHCP or whatever, and the power light is flashing green. We're waiting to see something come up here on the monitor, and there it comes. So it's a pretty typical Linux boot up screen coming through here. This whole process feels very much like Deep Lens, Deep Racer in terms of the way that we're setting up. It's got here Ubuntu 18.04.4. That's the version of Ubuntu that it's using on the device. Yeah, so very much like those deep products that we've seen before at previous reInvents. And I do wonder whether maybe those products were really a trial run, if you like, for producing these sort of enterprise pieces of hardware. I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are. So it's booting up. We've got all of the green OKs. Let's take a look at the AWS console. It's saying here that it's waiting for this device essentially to connect to it through the network, and literally all we have to do now is wait for the AWS console to say that it's ready. And there we go. So your appliance, my Panorama, is now connected and online. Have to say as well, the fans have started to spin up a little bit over here. All right, let's click next. And we're carrying on with the setup process. So we're still in that first setup process, and it's saying connect cameras. So it says add camera streams, and it's got two options here. One, to automatically add any cameras that I've got on my network which have the standard sort of security camera protocol. I don't have those, so I'm going to set up some manual RTSP streams in here. So let's go manual, click next. And I've got the settings sort of in this little clipboard up here. So here's the first one I'm going to add. I'm just going to add the URL in, and then I'm going to copy and paste the IP address because it wants the IP address, it wants the stream URL and a name. So let's call this Lego 1 because, as you might imagine, this is a stream of some Lego bricks. If I just scroll down here, you'll see that credentials are optional. And that's a good thing as far as the camera setup that I've got, because my streams do not have any security on them. So I like that it's optional, and I like that it does support having credentials there. So let's go ahead and click Add, and then say I want to add another stream, say Manual. I'm just going to go through the flow here of adding all 4 streams that I've got. Okay, so now I've got 4 streams that have been added. Now they're all showing in this interface as waiting to connect. But if I click Next and then Done, then hopefully we'll see a little bit more. A whole bunch of green messages to say that everything sort of works successfully as far as it's concerned. Now the first time I did this, I did have to update the firmware of the box, and we can see that the My Panorama device is currently running software version 3.0.50. It was running an older version when I first unboxed it, and I had to upgrade in order to be able to accept those RTSP streams. So let's go ahead and try and get rid of some of these messages. Click, 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 and dive into the actual device itself and see what we can see. So we can see not a lot. We can see that there's no applications currently deployed to it. If we go to camera streams, we can see the camera streams there. Not all of them are necessarily working quite yet. We'll wait and see. That's probably more on my network side of things than anything else, but you can see that 3 of the streams are actually connected. But you can't actually preview the streams here. There's no way, as far as I can see in the console, to monitor these streams like you could, for example, with Deep Lens. And we can go to Settings, and if we go to Settings, you get to see the appliance details and the network details. You can see things like the IP address it's got, software versions, and things like that. That's pretty much all we have. That's it. So the device is connected up to the network, and it's connected into my AWS account. Now what we have to do to make it do anything interesting is deploy a machine learning model to the device. Okay, so this is how we do it. We go to Applications or My Applications, and we go ahead and create an application, because an application is a configuration bundle of everything that we need to deploy our model to the device. So let's go ahead and say Create Application. It gives a little bit of a blurb about what an application is, and really it's just the marrying together of a machine learning model and a Lambda function. Now you'll have seen when we looked at the IAM policies that we gave to this service when we created it in the first place, we saw Greengrass in there, Greengrass policies. So this is using AWS Greengrass as a technology to be able to deploy the Lambda function and the model to the device. And the Lambda function, of course, is that running code that runs on the device, not up in the cloud. So let's go ahead and say begin creation. We need to give this a name, so I'm going to call it Lego Bricks, because that's what it does. No description or tags at this point. Click Next, and it says to choose a model. So I say choose a model, and then from here we should get a couple of options. We can add a model that we've previously added in Panorama. We can add something that we've trained in SageMaker within this account, or potentially, I guess, within an account that this account has access to. Or we can choose external model. So if you've built it in SageMaker somewhere else, as I have, then I'm going to pick up an external model from an S3 bucket somewhere. It happens to be inside of this account. It's been moved into here from where I trained it up. And I've trained it to detect Lego bricks. Let's go ahead and put in the model artifact path, which I have saved for myself here. And the model name. The model name is important. You can't just have a random model name. So the model name is actually referenced inside of the code that you run on the device. And we'll have a look at that in just a second. So I'm going to call it Lego-bricks. It's built with the MXNet framework. And then we have to configure the input configuration for the model. So let's go ahead and say add input. And we only have one data stream coming in, and it's the stream that's coming from every and each of the cameras which is on the device. The default name, if you like, is data, and we have to give it the shape of the data that we want to put into the model. So regardless of what the camera feed is coming in, this is the shape that the model wants to see. So we have a dimension of 1, 3, 300, 300, which basically means a 300 by 300 pixel image, which has got 3 channels of essentially color, and we want 1 image at a time. That's 1, 3, 300, 300. Let's go ahead and say add, and it says that I can't do that because I've already got a model of that name. Okay, so let's fix this problem. This is because I've been playing around in this console before. So let's go ahead and say that I'm going to call this -10, just to make sure it's completely different and new. I'm going to copy that because we'll have to make some changes to my Lambda function. That gives me an opportunity to show you that anyway. So let's scroll down and click add, and that has added that model into the Panorama section of the AWS console. It gives me the option now to go ahead and choose another model, so I can chain models together here. Incident, you can also deploy multiple applications to the device, but we're just going to keep it simple here. 1 application, 1 model. So let's click next, and then we get to choose a Lambda function. Now the Lambda function I'm going to choose, I need to make a slight update to. So let's go ahead and find Lambda in our console here. I'm going to open it up into a new tab, and we're going to find the function that we're going to use for this application deployment. So here it is, hopefully. Where is it? Here we go. AWS Panorama brick. And this function code is entirely taken and adapted from the sample code that AWS have got in GitHub for the Panorama device. And I'll link to all of that in the description of this video. So let's scroll down and have a look at the actual code itself. And here it is. And we're not going to go through all of it. I just want to look at this bit right at the top here, where we actually define inside of the function the model name over here. We call it Lego bricks. I need to update that to what we've just changed it to. So Lego bricks -10. The rest of the code I will leave for you to browse through in your own time whenever you want to. And again, I'll link to it down in the description of this video, or the original version anyway. So let's go ahead and say deploy. So we deploy that Lambda function, but we also need to create a version. So we're going to publish a new version, and I'm going to just give it a description name because it helps me keep track of things, of the name that we're calling, or the model name that we're calling in this function. So let's go ahead and say publish that. So we have a version of our Lambda. It's very important that we publish that in exactly the same way as we had to with Deep Lens, if you're familiar with that. Okay, so that's our Lambda function. Let's go back to Panorama and say choose Lambda function. And we see all of the Lambda functions that we have in this region, in this account. If I open up this, you can see that I've got the version 1, which was one I had a moment ago with the wrong model name. And I've got Lego bricks 10, this version 2 here. So I'm just going to click that one, select that, click select, and scroll down and click next. And at this point, it's saying, are we okay to proceed with this? And I absolutely am. So I'm going to click done, and it creates the application. So at this point, we've created the configuration of the application in the AWS console. We now need to deploy it to the Panorama device itself. And we have a shortcut to doing that right here. So I'm going to click deploy. I'm going to scroll down, begin deployment. I'm going to choose which appliance I want to deploy it to. And I only have one, so I'm going to say my Panorama. I'm going to click select. And then I'm going to scroll down and click next. It's then going to say which streams that are currently on this device do you want this model to work with. So let's go ahead and choose the streams and choose camera streams. And luckily for us at the moment, they're all connected and they're all working. So that's good. So I'm going to select them all. And then I'm going to click save and save again. And then scroll down and click next. Confirm everything, click deploy. And it will now go, and now click done, and it will now go through the stages of packaging that up, transferring it over to the Panorama device through Greengrass, both the model and the Lambda function that it needs to run. And so we're just going to give it a little bit of time to do that. Okay, so the application deployment is complete. We're now just waiting for, I guess, the device to boot into life. Now, when that happens, we should be able to see the actual video streams, those RTSP streams, actually on this monitor, because the HDMI output from the Panorama device sort of acts like a monitor, if you like, something that you can have in your control room of your factory or whatever you want, so that you can actually look at the output from the model. In addition to that, of course, it's going to be spewing its information into MQTT and to logs and to all kinds of other places we can investigate as well. And there we go. So what you can see there is 4 different video streams, the 4 streams that we were looking at. So 2 of them are cameras, as you can see. You can see me from a couple of different angles, and you can also see some streams I have of essentially video files. So I've actually used an RTSP server on the computer that's behind me, and it's streaming out these video files I have of Lego bricks. And you can see at the top left, we've got essentially a conveyor of Lego bricks, and as each one comes past, it's being identified with that red box around it, sort of saying I can see a Lego brick. On the bottom there, we've also got a sort of a revolving view at the bottom right of Lego bricks. I put them on top of a keyboard, so there was something there that was sort of squarish. It might have mistaken that, but you can see the models picking up in real time and giving us confidence scores in real time on the screen there of those Lego bricks. Now on the cameras, you can see that it has actually picked up the sofa for some reason. It kind of thinks that's one. Occasionally it picks up the monitor that's behind me and thinks that's one. There we go. But you know, that's to do with my model, not to do with the Panorama device itself. Well, that's it. That's what I wanted to get done with the AWS Panorama. We've got it out of the box. We've got it set up on the network. It's joined my AWS account through the console. We've also managed to deploy an application to it consisting of both the model and the Lambda function, which is now both running on this device. And we've got it analyzing real-time streams on my network. I am one step closer to building the ultimate Lego brick sorting machine. Thank you so much for watching. Please do support my channel even more by pressing the like button, even if you didn't like this video, frankly. Subscribe to the channel and tell everybody about this channel as well. Help me grow and help me produce more content like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.